The Desoto Square Mall used to be a bustling place, maybe the busiest place in North Bradenton for a long while. And for those of you new to the Suncoast, it can be hard to imagine. And while Desoto Square closed in 2021, a new investor wants to breathe new life into it. Joining us is the retail and tourism reporter for the Sarasota Herald-Tribune, Laura Finaldi. Welcome back.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me back.
It's great to have you. And you've told me that covering DeSoto Square and the history of it, is quite interesting because the DeSoto Square Mall has been through a lot. Now we have a new investor in it. Tell us a little bit about who's investing into DeSoto Square and what they would like to do with it.
Yeah, so this guy, his name is Charles Jones. He's from Nashville, and he has a bunch of different investments in that area. So a lot of the stuff that he's done is with individual properties, not like a huge mall, but more like individual parcels. So he's redeveloped an old mill building in Nashville into like a beautiful apartment lofts situation, which I've seen pictures of, and it's really nice. So he's done a lot of projects like that, a couple mixed use developments, and that's sort of the idea with this one too. Mixed use being a mixture of, residential, commercial, and maybe some other components.
Now, for people who don't know, and I know we have a graphic with a list of what happened to DeSoto Square. It used to be bustling. What really led to its downfall?
Well, after World War II and people started moving out to the suburbs, malls were being built in the areas where people were living. So over time with the internet, malls sort of started to be a bit overbuilt. So there are too many malls and not enough people going to them because the way that people shopped changed. So you have the internet, you have online shopping, you have competition from other major players like UTC, yep. Especially in 2014 when that mall opened. It was 12 miles south of DeSoto Square, so that was when DeSoto lost its Macy's. Then you have a bunch of different owners trying to redevelop it, and nothing ever really getting off the table. And then just the last owner before this one went into bankruptcy. And there was COVID as well, so yeah.
Yeah, so much, and I like a little history lesson on malls because I did hear, and I think partly from you and other sources too, was that, where they built it, it wasn't always like the most metropolitan place. I mean, they built it where these people live, but there were so many of them. Mm-hmm. And now, we've seen a lot of them die out. We've seen some of them do quite well, like UTC. So you look at like old videos or old pictures that we have from the Herald-Tribune actually as to how it was in the 1990s and the 2000s versus now. This is a little bit of a different kind of venture for this investor, isn't it? Because an entire mall, that isn't something I think that they've actually had a ton of experience in yet, right?
Well, the whole mall is sort of different for them, but mixed use is not. So they've done the residential, they've done the commercial, stuff like that. So putting it all together will be interesting, but also like this is the thing about DeSoto Square is people come in and they promise things, and we just hope that something eventually will happen. It's hard to know if it will. I interviewed his daughter actually, and I asked her, is there like a possibility that you want to see this all the way through, or is it something that you kind of want to is it an investment property for you? And she said, well, we like to see our properties all the way through, but if someone comes in with a good, proposal, someone local perhaps, then we don't know, maybe we would sell. So who knows? Just hopefully like this mall can catch a break, because like as you alluded to before, in the 70s, in 1973, the year that it opened, it was so anticipated and like so huge. And I mean, there's pictures from opening day. It was like incredibly grand. Like they had a statue of DeSoto, a bronze statue of DeSoto himself, and 6 like ships hanging above his head, like just really over the top. So it has a really deep history in this area.
And I'm glad you mentioned past promises, because that's exactly what I was going to ask you. Mm-hmm. Is that hasn't this kind of thing been promised before? That doesn't necessarily mean new promises won't happen. I would definitely love to see something come out of it, because my better half tells me she remembers when people used to drop off their kids, give them some money, they would go see a movie that was the theater in DeSoto Square, then they would eat. So I'm going to look forward to not just what happens, but your reporting on it, and we're going to have a link on this interview on our website to her story so you can read it in depth. Laura, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.